Assalamu alaikum. Students, can you all hear me? Am I audible? Okay. We'll start with today's lecture, okay? It is the second part of odontogenic tumors. You've already studied few lesions. Now the remaining important tumors are only discussed, okay? Last lecture, we had studied a few important, that is the very frequently seen tumors like ameloblastoma, adenomatoid odontogenic tumor, calcifying epithelial odontogenic tumors. Now these, whatever we had discussed were tumors which originated from the proliferation of odontogenic epithelium. So we have one more tumor left under the same category, that is squamous odontogenic tumor, and we'll be discussing that first, okay? Good evening, everybody. So we are continuing with the second half of odontogenic tumors. So we have already discussed tumors that originated from odontogenic epithelium. In that, one tumor was remaining to be discussed, that is squamous odontogenic tumor. So first we'll see about squamous odontogenic tumor. So in the name itself, you know that you can see some squamous cells. So it is an odontogenic tumor where you can see squamous epithelial cells. Now this SOT, this is a short form, but you try to remember it in the full form, okay? That is squamous odontogenic tumor. It has two variants. One is seen within the jaw bones associated with the alveolar process adjacent to the lateral root surface area of the tooth. So you can see it just like your lateral periodontal cyst and all, no, in the lateral root area. And this variant is thought to arise from the rests of molasses. So when we are talking about the pathogenesis of SOT, you have two concepts here. The one which is seen in the lateral root area is thought to arise from rests of molasses. You already know that rests of molasses are seen in the periodontal ligament space. They are the remnants of the Hertwig's epithelial root sheath which lie in a resting stage in the PDL space or the periodontal ligament space. In few individuals, that proliferates to give rise to various cysts and tumors. So one tumor that can arise from proliferation of rests of molasses is squamous odontogenic tumor. The second variant of SOT, which is associated with the crown of impacted tooth. So this one is thought to arise from the proliferation of rests of seres. So rests of seres are nothing but the remnants of the dental lamina. So here the rest of molasses and the rest of seres, they proliferate to give rise to squamous odontogenic tumor. Now this tumor is very important because histologically sometimes the diagnosis becomes very challenging because of its close resemblance to acanthomatous ameloblastoma and well differentiated squamous cell carcinoma. Acanthomatous ameloblastoma you have already studied, you know it. It is one of a histological variant of ameloblastoma. Squamous cell carcinoma you'll be studying in the next level, but histologically how we can differentiate between these two variants we'll discuss in the coming slides, okay? So first, now here we have just discussed about the pathogenesis. Now let's see the clinical features. Now this tumor shows slight more predilection for the males, more common in the mandible. Now when it occurs in the mandible, can you see this clinical picture? This is the predominant site, that is premolar molar area. When it occurs in the maxilla, the incisor canine area is the predominant site. So try to remember this picture in your mind so you'll never forget. When it occurs in the mandible, it is in the premolar molar area. Upper, in the maxillary arch, it is in the incisor canine area. Now, what are the clinical signs and symptoms? Usually it is asymptomatic. Sometimes there'll be a mild swelling, and here in this radiograph, it's very clear. You can see, no, associated tooth. Sometimes there'll be slight displacement of the teeth. There can be pain, and when you percuss the tooth, there can be tenderness. So if you have a patient like this with this radiographic appearance, what will be your first impression? We will think of localized periodontitis. Yes or no? Because the tooth is tender, it is mobile. But here you can see this semicircular radiolucency or triangular shaped radiolucency with a well-defined sclerotic border. So radiographically, it is very difficult to identify this SOT. So one was the very good differential diagnosis clinically is your periodontitis. Other than that, all the lesions which have the predominance in the lateral root area, like your lateral periodontal cyst, lateral radicular cyst. All these are the differential diagnosis for squamous odontogenic tumor. I'm talking about the radiographic differential diagnosis. Okay. Now when you open up and you get a soft tissue mass there. So it is a neoplasm. It's not like in periodontitis where there is bone destruction and inflammatory process. Here you find a mass of tissue will be obtained. If this tissue mass is sent for histopathological examination, this is what you can see under the microscope. Here you can see islands, just like how you saw in ameloblastoma and all. You can see these islands. These islands are made up of mature squamous cells. Now see carefully, you can see the squamous cells. You know how the squamous cells appear, right? They are polygonal shape and you can find keratin. So you can see such cells. At the periphery, you see these islands. You will not see the typical picture what you saw in acanthomatous. You won't see those ameloblast-like cells. These peripheral cells are more or less cuboidal. Okay, and now just clearly observe these squamous cells. They are all uniform. There is no difference in size or shape. There is no that is what we call as pleomorphism. There is no hyperchromasia, no mitotic activity. Now you cannot find any dysplastic epithelial pearls, nothing. So it is mature squamous epithelial cells. Okay, now surrounding these islands you can see here you can see bundles of collagen fibers. So remember, in this particular tumor, you can see islands of squamous epithelium bordered by cuboidal cells. These squamous cells are all uniform. They are benign or they are normal squamous cells. There is no pleomorphism, no nuclear hyperchromatism, no mitotic activity, no dysplastic epithelial pearls, nothing. There is no feature of cellular atypia. Okay. So how will you differentiate this one from acanthomatous ameloblastoma? First one. In acanthomatous, same, you can see the squamous cells in the center, but they'll be bordered by ameloblast-like cells, whereas here the cells are cuboidal. Okay, so immediately you can rule out it is not acanthomatous ameloblastoma. Second thing is squamous cell carcinoma. How will you rule out squamous cell carcinoma? If you see these islands, squamous cells, they're all normal squamous cells, whereas you know that squamous cell carcinoma is a malignant epithelial tumor. So you should expect dysplastic or atypical features. Normally in squamous cell carcinoma, you can see a lot of dysplastic features. The cells will not be so uniform. There will be pleomorphism, hyperchromasia. You can see keratin pearl formation, increased mitotic figures. But here they're all bland squamous epithelial cells. Clear? So this is how we differentiate this particular tumor from acanthomatous ameloblastoma and from your squamous cell carcinoma. Desmoplastic ameloblastoma also sometimes may be confused because in those, though the islands are strangulated, sometimes you might see squamous cells in the center. So that also can be included as a histopathological differential diagnosis for squamous odontogenic tumor. Okay. So here the same thing is discussed. These are the histopathological differential diagnosis. That one is well differentiated squamous cell carcinoma. The second one is acanthomatous ameloblastoma. So in squamous cell carcinoma, you will see a lot of dysplastic features, whereas here they are normal or bland squamous epithelial islands. Now acanthomatous ameloblastoma, at the periphery, you can see those ameloblast cells that following the Vickers and Collins criteria, whereas here you find cuboidal cells. Now what is a treatment? This is not a very destructive lesion. It is not infiltrative type of a tumor. So a simple enucleation or a curettage or a local excision is sufficient. Next, so we have discussed the first category, okay? That is tumors that arise due to proliferation of odontogenic epithelium. Now we'll discuss the second category of tumors, wherein you can see proliferation of both the epithelial and the mesenchymal component with or without hard tissue formation. Now here three tumors are named. One is ameloblastic fibroma, ameloblastic fibroodontoma, and odontoma. Now here some tumors you might see hard tissue formation, which might resemble enamel, dentine, or tooth-like structure. In some, you find only the soft tissue part proliferating. It has not differentiated to the extent of hard tissue formation. Now, in this, we'll discuss only two, that is ameloblastic fibroma and odontoma. Ameloblastic fibroma. Now, this tumor is very important because here you see the mouth of this patient. So this, if you remember this clinical picture, it gives you a hint of all the clinical signs and symptoms. Now remember, in this tumor you have proliferation of both the epithelial and mesenchymal tissues. Now in the name you see it is ameloblast fibroma. So some ameloblastic elements are there and fibroma, so fibrous tissue. There is no hard tissue here. So here you have proliferation of epithelial and mesenchymal tissue without formation of enamel or dentine. Okay, you know when you have studied tooth development, you know that when the epithelial and the mesenchymal components proliferate, that is a tooth germ. The enamel organ and the papilla, dental papilla, when it proliferates, there will be differentiation and leading to the formation of enamel and dentine. So here it is not going to the extent of hard tissue formation. Now see this clinical picture. So that mouth itself is giving you a clue, right? This tumor is seen in younger individuals. Remember, the age is around 12 years. So children and young adults, usually asymptomatic, just like ameloblastomas, no? So you can see it in the posterior segment of the mandible. You can see the cortical expansion, so naturally facial asymmetry. But unlike ameloblastomas and all, this particular tumor, it grows by gradual expansion. It will not infiltrate between the trabeculae of bone. And the periphery of the lesion is smooth, okay? So initially, when it is small, it may be asymptomatic. Slowly, there can be swelling, then naturally leading to facial asymmetry. There can be pain and tenderness in the area. And remember, the most common site is mandibular molar ramus area and may be associated with impacted tooth. So when we are talking about pericoronal radiolucencies, that is radiolucency in the pericoronal areas, in slightly adult, that is above the second decade, you have to think of dentigerous cyst, unicystic ameloblastoma. When it comes to children, the first thing you have to think of is ameloblastic fibroma. Clear? So clinically, it is slow growing, does not infiltrate between the trabeculae of bone, and it enlarges by gradual expansion, and the periphery of the tumor is smooth. So it is a purely benign tumor. Now let's see the radiograph. So it is an osteolytic lesion. There is removal of bone. What can you see under the radiograph? A well circumscribed radiolucent lesion with a sclerotic margin. So here you can see the tooth is impacted. So you can see a multilocular radiolucent lesion associated with the impacted tooth. So in case it is small, it might appear unilocular. Larger ones are multilocular and they may be associated with the crown of the impacted tooth. So this is the radiographic appearance. So very good differential diagnosis radiographically is your OKC, ameloblastomas, then when it is associated with impacted tooth, dentigerous cyst and unicystic ameloblastomas. Now what can you see under the microscope? So here you remember that both the epithelium and the mesenchymal component is proliferating. So you can see the epithelial tissue also proliferating along with the connective tissue element. So how does the epithelium proliferate? The epithelium is seen proliferating in variety of patterns, like how you saw in AOT and all that. No, you can see the epithelial component in the form of strands, small nests, pods, or rosette, like flower-like. And if you see these epithelial cells, they may be either cuboidal or columnar. Okay, so that is the epithelial part. The mesenchymal component, it will look just like the primitive connective tissue, like your dental papilla, wherein there are a lot of connective tissue cells with long fibrils, and like it's more loose, like intervening fibrils with interspersed by large connective tissue cells, that is larger plump connective tissue cells, and these cells are more elongated and they contain fibrils within the cytoplasm. Okay, then so that is the epithelium. Now you saw the connective tissue. So connective tissue also is proliferating. It is cellular. Now surrounding this islands of the epithelial islands, you can see a hyalinized zone. Hyaline means it is a microscopic appearance wherein it looks glassy pink under the microscope. Now here you can see this term juxtaepithelial hyalinization. Juxta means immediately, epithelial, that is surrounding the epithelium, you can see a glassy pink microscopic appearance. Now what does this indicate? Now if you read the books, you can see like exactly because it is close to the basement membrane of these epithelial cells, maybe it is dentine or dentinoid. But then studies have proven this to be nothing but the exuberant basal lamina. Okay. So here in this picture, I think it will be more easier for you to understand. So here you can see these epithelial islands. Here they are slightly, you can see these elongated strand like, and they're bordered by either cuboidal or columnar cells. In the center, you find very less of stellate reticulum. Now see the stroma. Now when you saw ameloblastoma, all those tumors, the stroma was not proliferating, so it was somewhat fibrous. Whereas here you find a more cellular stroma, just like the dental papilla, loosely arranged, elongated cells. Okay, and surrounding this island, now I think in the second figure it is more clear. Now this is an epithelial island. Surrounding that you can see a pink zone. This is called as juxtaepithelial hyalinization, and this is nothing but the exuberant basal lamina. Now, differential diagnosis. As I told you, posterior segment, multilocular appearance, ameloblastoma, odontogenic myxoma, odontogenic keratocyst. These are the very good differential diagnosis because the site and the radiographic appearance look somewhat similar. When it is associated with impacted tooth, you can think of dentigerous cyst or unicystic ameloblastoma. Now, as you know, this treatment, this particular tumor, it is not infiltrative, it is not destructive, it is more or less encapsulated like. So you can just, it's not invasive, so you can treat it by a simple curettage or excision. But you cannot leave it like that because there is a variant called as ameloblastic fibrosarcoma. See, sarcoma means it's a malignant tumor which arises from the connective tissue. So here in this tumor, ameloblastic fibrosarcoma, it is a mesenchymal component which is proliferating in a malignant fashion. That tumor may arise as ameloblastic fibrosarcoma, or there are case reports wherein ameloblastic fibroma has transformed into ameloblastic fibrosarcoma. So though this ameloblastic fibroma is truly benign, not infiltrative, you have to treat it at the earliest, and a regular recall may be essential. Okay. The next one, that is odontoma. Now, odontoma is very important because it is the most common odontogenic tumor. See, when we discussed ameloblastoma, we told that why ameloblastoma is so important because of its frequency of occurrence. It is the second most common odontogenic tumor, whereas odontoma is the most common odontogenic tumor. Now, there's a lot of controversies regarding odontoma because there's a group of scientists who believe that this is a truly a hamartoma. Okay, you know what a hamartoma is: proliferation of tissue in its native site. So within the jaw bones, you find tooth-like structures. So they think, and its behavior is also not neoplastic. It is not recurrent. I mean, doesn't show recurrence. It does not have any proliferative index is very less. So accordingly, they consider this to be a hamartomatous proliferation. Now, if you are considering it as a tumor, okay, then it's a benign odontogenic tumor. It is so if you consider this as a tumor, it is the most common odontogenic tumor. Okay. If they ask you, like for your exam, remember that it is a most common odontogenic tumor, but again, it is a hamartomatous proliferation. Okay. Now here, what is so special about this tumor is one is its frequency of occurrence. And in this particular tumor, you have both epithelial and the mesenchymal tissues that are proliferating. So epithelial elements and the mesenchymal tissue, it proliferates and completely differentiates. So there is complete differentiation into functional ameloblast and odontoblast. And these ameloblasts, they secrete enamel, and the odontoblasts, they secrete dentine. But the enamel and dentine that is laid down is in an abnormal pattern. Okay, so you may they don't resemble the normal tooth, but again, odontomas, you have two types, wherein one may look like a miniature tooth, whereas a complex will not have any resemblance to tooth-like structure. Okay, but you can see enamel, dentine, cementum, and all that. So there is no proper morphodifferentiation. That is, if you recollect your tooth development, it's not only the histological tissues that have been differentiated, the morphology, the proper morphological differentiation has not taken place. Now, this tumor is otherwise called as composite odontoma. Composite means having more than two tissues. So here you will find enamel, dentine, cementum, pulp. So more than one type of tissue. That's why we call it as a composite tumor. Now, what is the etiology? Now, many theories are proposed. It may be due to trauma, infection, or inherited as a mutant gene. For some cases, you can find multiple odontomas. Now here we have two types of odontomas. One is compound and complex. That is because of its appearance, what we say as compound. The compound one, you can see miniature or rudimentary teeth. Okay, so in this particular odontoma, you can see multiple small teeth. Whereas the other one, that is complex odontoma, you can just see a mass of hard tissue. That is a conglomeration of hard tissue. Now these odontomas are of three types, okay? Central, peripheral or erupted. Central is within the bone. Peripheral may appear like a soft tissue swelling, which is very rare. Erupted, just like a normal tooth, these odontomas might erupt into the oral cavity. Now clinically, what are the signs and symptoms? Now this tumor is seen in children and young adults, more common in the maxilla than the mandible. Again, you have the compound and the complex shows different site predilection. Compound odontomas are more common in the anterior jaw, and complex odontomas are more common in the posterior jaw. Now, clinically, it may be asymptomatic. Sometimes a patient might come with a retained deciduous tooth, an impacted tooth, or a small swelling on the alveolar ridge. There is an alveolar swelling, or sometimes infection. Now, here in this clinical picture, you can see the centrals have not yet erupted. So, there is delayed eruption of the permanent. So these are the normally what clinical signs and symptoms we see. Now, when you take a radiograph, what do you expect? Now, compound, I told you, in compound you can see rudimentary teeth-like structures. Now here, in this particular radiograph, you can see a sac or something like a radiolucent area inside which you can see many small tooth-like structures. Now here, the second one, you can see the tooth is impacted, and above that you can see a radiopaque mass. So radiographically, see, compound is, sometimes you can see some books describing it as bag of marbles. That is like a bag inside which you have many white marbles. It's exactly like that, no, like a sack with lot of tooth inside. And if you see clearly, they may not resemble the tooth of the normal quadrant, like not a normal permanent or a deciduous tooth, but like just like a tooth, a rudimentary tooth. You can see the enamel, you can see the dentine, sometimes you can see the pulp tissue, you can see the crown and the root. So they may resemble a tooth. So calcified material surrounded by a radiolucent rim. See here, radiolucent rim. Even in the complex, radiopaque area surrounded by a radiolucent rim. In compound odontoma, you can find numerous tiny teeth within a single focus. Now this particular sac may be within the tooth bearing area or between, now as you can see in this radiograph, between the roots of unerupted tooth, or may be associated with the crowns of impacted teeth. Now, complex odontoma, as you can see in this radiograph, the first radiograph, you can see here as an amorphous opaque mass surrounded by a radiolucent rim. Now, these odontomas, radiographically, they have three phases. Initially, it appears radiolucent. Slowly, it has a mixed appearance. Then it becomes radio-opaque, surrounded by a radiolucent rim. So this is the radiographic appearance. Now, coming to the histopathology. So compound odontoma, you know that it looks like a tooth. So just like a tooth, you can expect, see if you see this radiograph, this microscopy here, you can see many tooth-like structures, okay? Now let's see one area. Now here, on outside, you can see a clear area. See enamel, this is a decalcified section. And you know that enamel is hypermineralized. It is having 96% inorganic component. So when you decalcify, that is when you remove the calcified matrix from enamel, hardly anything is left. So enamel under a decalcified section will appear as a clear space. We call it as enamel space. Okay. So enamel is seen as enamel space. Inner to that you can see the dentine. With a higher magnification, you might clearly see the dentinal tubules. Then you can see the pulp tissue in the center. Sometimes you can see cementum-like areas. Then see, another important feature is ghost cell keratinization. That is in the second slide. You can see these amorphous eosinophilic structures here. So these are the ghost cells where you can only see the faint outline of the cell. So remember, and in case of compound, it can look just like the tooth with enamel out, dentine, and then the pulp. Whereas in complex, you can just see some areas of enamel, some areas of dentine, some pulp tissue and cementum. They will not be organized in the form of a tooth. Another very important thing is presence of ghost cells. Then the capsule, the connective tissue capsule around that, the radiolucent rim, what you can see in the radiograph, is nothing but the connective tissue capsule. Now, what is a differential diagnosis? So when you can see those tooth-like structures within the radiolucent area, it's very clear that it is compound odontoma. Whereas complex odontoma sometimes is very confusing. You might think of any other tumors wherein you can see a mixed pattern, like osteomas. Now, if it is in relation with the root area, then you might confuse it for cementoblastomas, osteoblastomas, ossifying fibromas. All these, the cementoblastoma we'll be discussing in the next thing. Ossifying fibroma and all you will study in your next level. So that is a tumor wherein you can see both radiolucent and radio-opaque areas, okay? Osteoma is again a benign tumor of the bone. So you might see these opaque, radio-opaque areas there. Focal condensing osteitis, in that case the associated tooth will be non-vital because it is a sequelae of your dental caries. You have already studied, right? Before it goes into the, when it gets localized in that area, it causes an inflammatory response in the periapex of the tooth. It can cause something called as condensing osteitis. You will be studying in your coming lectures. So all these can be included as your differential diagnosis. Treatment. See, it is purely behaving like an hematoma. It is not showing any recurrence, not destructive, nothing. So a simple enucleation is sufficient. I forgot to mention, radiographically, this particular odontoma should be separated out. I mean, you should be very careful to differentiate it from ameloblastec odontoma. Ameloblastec odontoma is not a very common tumor. Now, there you find structures, tooth-like structures, but you can see ameloblastomatous areas. Okay? So that is another radiographic differential diagnosis, and ameloblastic fibrodontoma. Whereas, but these two are more neoplastic. You can see the epithelial and the mesenchymal component proliferating, the cellular components highly proliferating, and they are more neoplastic. Whereas hematoma is, I mean, odontoma is a pure hematomatous type of proliferation. A simple enucleation is sufficient. The third category, that is tumors which arise from the odontogenic ectomesenchyme with or without included odontogenic epithelium. So here it is a mesenchymal tissue that is proliferating. It is your dental papilla or the dental follicle. And you might see, histologically, you might see the odontogenic epithelium, but it is not proliferating. Okay. Under this, you have odontogenic myxoma, central odontogenic fibroma, cementifying fibroma, cementoblastoma, and periapical cementoosseous dysplasia. We'll be discussing only odontogenic myxoma and cementoblastoma. So coming to the first one, that is odontogenic myxoma. Now, myxomas are tumors which are seen throughout the body. Sometimes you see it in your limbs, limb areas and all that. But the, whatever myxomas you see in the jaw areas are believed to arise from the odontogenic ectomesenchyme, or they are truly odontogenic in origin. Okay, then the pathogenesis of myxomas in the other parts are not same as that of the jaw area. So whatever myxomas are reported in the jaw area are truly odontogenic in origin. Microscopically, this particular tumor, it resembles a dental pulp or the dental follicle. As you know, it arises from this tissue. So histologically also, it resembles the pulp or the follicular tissue. Clinically, the average age is around third decade, that is 30 years, more common in the mandible, and smaller lesions are usually asymptomatic. Larger ones, there can be a painless expansion of the involved bone, and it is a slow growing tumor. Now, when it is seen in the maxilla, it might invade the maxillary antrum. And this particular tumor, it is locally invasive. It is a benign neoplasm, but it is infiltrative, and locally it is invasive. So the ones in the maxilla can invade into the maxillary antrum. Now, other than the tooth bearing areas, myxomas are also reported in the condylar region. Clinically, what signs and symptoms you can expect? As I told you, maxilla can invade the maxillary antrum. It can cause displacement of the tooth. Now, radiograph. When a radiograph is taken, it has a multilocular appearance. So we can describe it as a mottled or a honeycombed appearance. So you can see it is osteolytic. There is destruction of the bone. So you can see this multilocularity, and you can clearly see this expansion over here. Now you can appreciate the cortical expansion. It can cause displacement of the tooth. Now here you can see in these radiographs, the tooth have been displaced. Here the locularity is very clearly, you can clearly see it. You can see books describing it in different forms. Like some say it is what you can see here, the mottled or the honeycomb pattern or step ladder pattern or tennis racket. You know what how the tennis bat looks. They're more uniform, right? So similarly, when these locules here look more uniform. Now, gross is when you are, now here the jaw is resected, jaw with the tumor mass is resected out. And when you see it, you can see it is more slimy or gelatinous. This is a very important clue for myxomas. They are more gelatinous. These tumors, they have more of matrix or the stroma, no? It is more having more of matrix elements. That's why it is having this gelatinous consistency. So the extracellular matrix, you can see, now you can see cells here. Now they are like loosely arranged, spindle shaped cells. Whereas you see the matrix, it is rich. That is very important for myxomas. So in myxomas, you can see loosely arranged, star shaped or spindle shaped or stellate shaped cells. Now you see these cells, they have elongated processes or fibrillar processes, and it looks like the processes are intermeshing or intermingling. Now, if you see these cells, they are all normal, like you don't find any dysplastic features. Normally, we don't see any difference in the size or shape. There is no pleomorphism, no hyperchromasia, no prominent nucleoli or mitotic figures. Now, very important in this tumor is surrounding the cells, the matrix. Now, this intercellular area is highly mucoid. That's why you find that gelatinous consistency. Now, ultrastructural studies regarding the cells and the matrix shows that you find it is rich in mucopolysaccharides. And remember, now if you see your book, you can see a lot of things like lactate, dehydrogenase, fibronectin, tenascin, all many elements are seen. But just remember that you can see abundant of hyaluronic acid and lesser amount of chondroitin sulfate. This hyaluronic acid is the one which is responsible for the neoplastic behavior. So because you find more hyaluronic acid, that is significant for the neoplastic behavior of this particular tumor. Other than that, now here this arrow is pointing out some structures. This is the epithelium, that is your odontogenic epithelium. So you might see nests of odontogenic epithelium. Then this tumor shows high alkaline phosphatase and lactate dehydrogenase activity. Then ultra study shows these cells to be some dark cells and light cells, like they are secretory cells, and some cells are packed with fibrils. But what you have to remember right now is the matrix, which is highly mucoid. Then remember the hyaluronic acid, the cells which are stellate or star shaped with intermingling with each other with elongated fibrils. Okay, so just remember so much. Now, what is the differential diagnosis? When you see the cellular stroma, no, those loosely arranged star-shaped cells, first thing suddenly we think it is a developing dental pulp or a follicle tissue. Now, radiographically, because of the multilocular appearance, ameloblastomas, central hemangiomas, sometimes they look like similar like these osteosarcomas and all. Some you might see the ray pattern also. So all that could be included as your radiographic differential diagnosis. And histological, very good differential diagnosis is a developing dental pulp and the hyperplastic follicular tissue. Other important thing is when you see this myxoid stroma, no, you might confuse it for neural tumors, because neural tumors, you can see a lot of myxoid areas like myxoid neurofibroma, nerve sheath myxomas, then even myxoid, some tumors where there is myxoid degeneration. All these can be included as your differential diagnosis. Now, what is a treatment? A surgical excision with curettage is a treatment of choice, but this particular tumor shows some amount of recurrence. One is because it is not encapsulated and its gelatinous consistency, so removal becomes difficult. So larger tumors sometimes require a resection, just like how you treat ameloblastomas, but smaller ones, excision or a curettage may be sufficient. The last one, that is cementoblastoma, otherwise called as trocementoma. In the name itself, you know there is cementoblast. So it is a true neoplasm wherein the cementoblast proliferate. So it is a true neoplasm or functional cementoblast that is connected or fused with the root of the tooth. So here the cementoblast proliferate. So when cementum proliferates, cementoblast proliferate, you will find cementum-like tissue. This cementum will be fused to the tooth root. Okay. Now, this particular disease has three stages. One is peripheral osteolysis, then the cementoblastic stage, then it comes the maturative stage. So, initial stage there is removal of the bone and the root there, followed by deposition of cementum, then maturation of the cementum. So, initially it is radiolucent, second stage it has a mixed appearance, and third stage it is radio opaque with a radiolucent rim. Exact etiology is not known. Now we'll see what are the clinical features. Now try to remember these clinical picture and the radiograph. See the age. It is during the second to third decade. The maximum you can see it around 25 years of age. The tooth commonly involved are the mandibular first permanent molar. So it is having more predilection to the mandible than the maxilla, and more commonly it involves the first permanent molar. And you can see the tumor is associated with the root of the tooth. Now see this clinical picture where the tooth is extracted. This is a premolar tooth. So here you can see the tissue attached to the premolar. So you can see the tumor mass. It has resorbed the bone. It resorbed the root and is attached to the root of the tooth. So the tumor is associated with the tooth root. Now clinically it is slow growing. So the patient might come like how you can see in this clinical picture with a small unilateral swelling. There can be low grade intermittent pain, but this associated tooth is usually vital. When you have a radio opaque lesion with a radiolucent rim like this, osteomas or osteoblastomas, they are the differential diagnosis what you can think. But in those cases, they will not be attached to the root of the tooth like how cementoblastoma is attached. Then a very good differential diagnosis is hypercementosis. Now, how will you differentiate hypercementosis from cementoblastoma? Hypercementosis, you can see it will be the cemental mass will be continuous with the root of the tooth. It will not resorb the root, and the periodontal ligament space will be continuous. Whereas here you can see the root is resorbed and the tumor tissue is attached to the tooth root. So radiographically, now as you can see in this radiograph, a round radio opaque mass fused with one or several roots of the associated tooth. So you can see this radio opaque mass which is fused to the tooth root, and surrounding that you can see a radiolucent line or the radiolucent rim. Now here if you see carefully, the outline of the root is obliterated because this tumor tissue has resorbed the tooth root, and this mass has fused to the tooth root. So the root outline is completely lost. Histopathologically. Now this is when the tooth is extracted and you're seeing it under lower magnification, you can see the tumor mass has resorbed the root of the tooth, and you can see the radiolucent rim that is a capsule. Okay. Now here you can see that cemental tissue. The hard tissue, what you can see here is cementum. The cementum may be in the form of sheets or globular masses, and it might look just like your secondary cellular cementum. You know what is cellular cementum, right? You can see cemental trabeculae within which you can see this lacunae, and in the lacunae you can see the cementocytes. So such cellular cemental type of histopathology is seen. Sometimes you can see the cementum in a globular pattern, and it might look like giant cementicles. You know what are cementicles, right? They are calcifications what are seen in the periodontal ligament space. So it might look like that. And this cemental sheets, sometimes you can see the reversal lines. Now surrounding this you can see the now in between also you can see some soft tissue elements. This soft tissue consists of a fibrillar matrix, and sometimes you can see blood and some cells, vascular and cellular elements. Now, many of the cemental trabeculae may be bordered by the cementoblast, just like how you see in bone bordered by the osteoblast. Here the cemental trabeculae may be bordered by the cementoblast. Sometimes you can even see the cementoclast. Whereas this calcified mass, it will be united to the tooth root. That is, this tissue, whatever hard tissue is formed here, the cementoblastoma, it has resorbed the root and it is fused to the tooth root. So there is obliteration of the periodontal ligament space, resorption of the root, and the root is replaced by the tumor tissue. This is very important. Okay. And periphery of the tumor, you have a soft cellular area that is nothing but the capsule. So here, the red line, what you can see is your capsule, and this is a tumor tissue. You can see, now just observe the tooth. The periodontal ligament space is stopped here because this tumor tissue has resorbed the root and it is fused to the tooth root. So here you can see it is almost fused to both the roots. See, these are the different appearance. Now here you can see sheets of cementum, and you can see these reversal lines. And the second slide, you can see this, it is bordered by the cementoblast. These plum cells bordering the cementum are nothing but the cementoblast. See, now here you can see a multinucleated cell, that is a cementoclast, and soft tissue elements in between. That is, you can see the fibroblast, you can see a lot of blood vessels, and here you can see some extravasated RPCs. Differential diagnosis. Very important is hypercementosis. So how do you differentiate hypercementosis from cementoblastoma? Hypercementosis, the PDL space will be continuous. That is, you can see the thin radiolucent border, and usually there is no symptoms, right? There is no pain, swelling, nothing. Now, osteoblastoma, that is a tumor of the, it is a benign tumor of bone. So you can see a lot of osteoblasts proliferating. Here the tumor tissue will not be fused to the root of the tooth. It will be within the bone. It may be, in some cases, it might look just like as though it is beneath the root of the tooth, but it will not be fused to the root of the tooth. Then condensing osteitis or chronic focal sclerosing osteomyelitis. So osteomyelitis means there was inflammation of the bone. So how did the inflammation of the bone come? From the overlying tooth. So naturally the tooth in the area will be non-vital. Okay. Now what is the treatment? Surgical removal, and the associated tooth will have to be sacrificed because so much of resorption has taken place. So when you remove the tumor tissue, along with that, the tooth has to be removed. Now here you have the picture how you can differentiate hypercementosis from cementoblastoma. Now here the first one, clinically see in case of hypercementosis, clinically nothing is evident. There is no swelling, nothing. And see the radiograph, you can see the cervical, the apical third of the root, it looks very thick because of increased deposition of cementum. Just see the radiolucent line around that. And see the lamina dura. The radiolucent line is your periodontal ligament space. It is uniform throughout the root, and the lamina dura is also intact here. The root, you can see the full length of the root, though it is bulkier there, the root outline is full length. You can see the entire root there. There is no resorption. See the histopathology. The periodontal ligament space is intact, and it is continuous around the root of the tooth. Now see the second picture. See the clinical appearance. Now here you can see the swelling. See the radiograph. You can see the tooth with a radio-opaque mass and surrounded by a radiolucent rim. Now see the histopathology. You can see the tooth. The tumor tissue has resorbed the tooth root and it is attached to the root of the tooth. Okay. So with this, we are completing the odontogenic tumors. I think you have understood it. If you have any doubts, please type. Okay, you can type in your chat box.